Mangird XENNS UP. Let's talk about it. This is a loaner set sent out to me by a friend of mine from Hifiguides. I wanted to thank him for this loan. This is a 2EST 4BA double dynamic driver that costs around $700. This came out in 2001, so it's been out now for about 4 years. So let's get into this IEM, talk about it, and talk whether this IEM is still relevant in our modern day. Now, as we look at the build quality, you'll notice it's a fairly large IEM. This portion that's kind of facing us now is a little bit large for some people and could be challenging. It is a little bit wider than some IEMs that I might like and a little bit taller, but it sits in ear well, and I don't really have any major fault with it, but it's not the most comfortable. It's this area right there that's hard, and it's easy to fit ear tips on. It does have a nice wing to it, and it is a flat 2-pin cable connector. Its faceplate, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, kind of weird looking. I don't know if I really like it, but I also don't hate it. It's also unique, and overall, I like this earphone, and it's comfortable for me. Now let's talk about this earphone. There's some weird things about the sound that it's hard for me to describe, but we're going to do the best we can. I feel like it has atmospheric upper mids. Certain instruments sound a little bit off. Trumpets sound off. Some string instruments sound a little bit too thin. Vocals sound a little bit too airy and too almost majestic, like they're trying to do too much for it. Like it sounds super fake, and it almost as if it's trying to demonstrate a soundstage effect to people. The upper mids kind of kill it for me, but it's a fun set that's not bad and enjoyable. String instruments sound really good. Cellos sound good. Drums sound tinny and actually a little bit sharp. Electric guitars are so thin and affected. Metal doesn't sound very good on this because there's a lot of treble. This is one of those IEMs that's not bad, but it's plagued with some issues. At $700, it kind of fails to impress, but it's not unenjoyable or bad. The instruments seem a little bit forward on this, and it does have a kind of an unnatural timbre. If you're a soundstage lover, this might be a good IEM for you to try, but at its price point, it's not really that accessible for most of us in the hobby. Let's look at some graphs and talk about it. So the curve overall is a pretty solid curve. It just has some interesting things about it that you kind of can't really dictate from the graph itself. The graph itself is one of those ones that even the biggest graph sniffers in the world are going to look at it and be like, that looks pretty good. And that's because it does. But I don't know what it is about the implementation of the drivers, or just maybe certain areas of this that give that timbre and that unnatural sense to this. But if you can tell, most of the upper mids are pretty good. I like a little bit more sub bass. I like a little bit more of an earlier dip down here, but overall it's pretty good as far as the target goes, but there's interesting things about it. For me, in that price range, I kind of think I would go with the EJ07. I just think it has better timbre overall. It just sounds more natural in ear, and it's something that I enjoy just a little bit more, and I kind of would consider maybe to be the better IEM. But, it's hard to say. These are both about $700 IEMs, so it kind of depends on what you're looking for. But I think this might be something at that price point that does some great things, maybe something to consider. Next thing I wanted to say is that this is a funny IEM because of its price point. Not only I think can you look and find other IEMs that are around $700 that are better, but you can also find IEMs that are cheaper or better, like even something like the Dunu Da Vinci. I think it has really nice even upper mids. I mean, it has nice treble and extension. They both have very similar basses, and their basses kind of remind me of each other. Like if you look, they both kind of have that slightly rolled off bass approach. And so for me, both of them kind of have this similar bassy approach, but not enough sub bass to really get it rocking for what I really would like from an IEM. This is another one I wanted to kind of point out is the Tin Hi-Fi Doo-Doo. This is a pretty recent release that, you know, I kind of bagged on. I didn't really like it that much, but it had kind of fun vocal presence. There's this new crop of planar IEMs that have come out fairly recently in the past like year and a half, and some of the recent ones have been actually really quite impressive, like the Let's Shure S08 and the Tin Hi-Fi Doo-Doo, and even other things like the Hifiguides MP143, I think are ones that can give you a better sense of air and technicalities. And so it's kind of what you have to ask yourself is, do you want something that has bass forward with ESTs, or do you want something that's cheaper that has better treble and the same bass with a different approach to mids that's a little bit more tame? I personally think that the Mangird XENNS UP is a really nice IEM, but it has an interesting approach to sound that doesn't sound completely natural to me. And that's kind of my approach to it, is that while the graph looks good, the overall IEM itself is just kind of okay, especially for $700. So let's rank this guy up. I think overall this is a solid IEM and not a bad IEM overall. I think if you could get this IEM for a lot cheaper than what it is, it might be good. Bass is a pretty good. I'm giving it an 8. Its mids, they're okay. The problem with this one is actually the highs. The treble is a little bit off for me and a little bit too splashy, unnatural, and twangy. The imaging is pretty good. The note weight's pretty good. The overall technicalities are good, but the soundstage to me feels hyper unnatural and almost like they're trying too hard. Its overall sounds clear. I feel it has good drivers. But just the highs overall, they're off-putting. They're a little bit weird, and they're just not exactly something that I can recommend at its price. But it's not one of those IEMs you're going to just look at and listen to and say, wow, this is just terrible. But it's kind of just that middling price point where it's not really great, it's not really bad, but it's definitely okay. And it's definitely an enjoyable set with some interesting things going on. And to that flavor of neutral that's a little bit crazy, a little bit fun, but not too bad. XENNS Mangird UP. A solid set, maybe a great IEM in its day, but I think at this point, I think you're better off with some other IEMs that might be a little bit cheaper. I think you might be better off demoing this first. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys have a great day. You're still here. It's over. Go home. Go watch another IEM video. It's done. That's the entire video. What more do you want?